I'm Dave Champion. Welcome back to another fact-based presentation that Facebook fact checkers will tell you is false and misleading because the conclusions to which the facts lead just upset them. All right, let's start by looking at this COVID Neuroses Network, otherwise known as CNN, headline. And of course, you can see it reads, 10 states report highest number of COVID-19 cases. And the headline that I personally like is the one that's worrisome increase in 7 states or 11 states or 13 states. Worrisome increases. Okay, so where is the United States in reality? Leaving aside all these headlines and the fear-mongering, where really is the United States? A big part of what we're going to be discussing today is the difference between how a virus spreads in an urban environment and how the virus spreads in a rural environment, which is key to understanding the numbers, not the headlines, because they're just nonsense, but the numbers of what's really going on. But before I get to urban versus rural, I want to start by looking at the U.S. death numbers to put this into perspective. As you can see right here, from late July through late September, the number of deaths from COVID-19 in the United States was on a continuous downward trend. Then you'll see right here, it flattens out. And I think it's important to note that it is now flat, neither increasing nor diminishing, because the headlines tend to give the impression that things are out of control. And as you can see from at least the number of deaths, things are not out of control. So how is the United States doing in the area of new daily infections? And for that, let's take a look at, of course, if you're watching one of my presentations, the data. You can see right here, as I've said time and time again, you've got to have the red line to get to the blue line. In other words, what you're seeing here is the herd immunity pyramid. Cases went up dramatically, herd immunity was attained, and the cases begin to drop off significantly. But what's this over here? What that is rural states. So let's go back to the initial herd immunity pyramid. This that you see here, this dramatic, almost vertical rise, is cases spreading within the urban environment in the United States. And of course, that was also the place where the most testing was going on. Then you see the urban environment hits herd immunity right there, and then it drops off. And then you get down to here, and right here, about the first couple days in September, is when the virus starts spreading more robustly within the rural states. And we see the completely expected and well-anticipated increase reflected in this line. So what's going to happen to that line? Yeah, the rural states are going to hit herd immunity too, and that line that's going up now is going to peak, and it's going to start dropping back down, just as we saw in the urban herd immunity pyramid on the U.S. total new infection cases graph. I just told you that the latest upswing, we went up to the pyramid, hit herd immunity, urban, came down, and now we're going up in rural. So let's talk about some rural states. This chart you're looking at right here designates states, the darkest states being those that have the highest number of new daily cases. Obviously, we're not going to go through all of this. This is from Johns Hopkins. We're only going to take a look at the top 3. I think we'll start with Montana. Pretty dramatic increase, yes? Okay, so yeah, it looks dramatic on a graph, but we have to put things into perspective. So Montana, on its highest day of new daily infections, had 720 new daily infections. Compare that to New York, that on its highest day had more than 12,000 new daily infections. 12,000 a day more than, versus 720. Let's look at North Dakota now. Again, pretty dramatic upswing, yes? And yeah, again, their highest new daily infection rate was 722 infections in a single day. So they're right on par with Montana, and we're talking in the low 700s versus a state like New York that, when it was raging, was at more than 12,000 new infections a day. Next up, South Dakota. As you can see, same exact trend, another rural state. All these rural states are experiencing not all of them, almost all of them are experiencing the very similar trend that you've seen in the last two, and now you're looking at this one. And South Dakota had, on its very highest day right here, 1,000 new infections. So what's going on in these rural states with deaths? Well, many days deaths are zero. Many of them, by that I mean many of the days, are single digit, and some of them are the low double digits, 11, 12, 14. Nothing like we were seeing in the urban centers. I keep bringing up how things were in the urban centers. Remember that line that was going up, okay, before the urban centers had herd immunity? Why am I saying that? Well, because people still have in their heads all the horrible news, and it was pretty disturbing. All that horrible news coming out of the urban centers like New York City that were hot spots, okay? So people have that in their head, and the media, like the bogus headlines I showed you earlier on, the media is trying to cause the public to think by not giving numbers, by simply saying things like, oh my God, a worrisome increase in cases. They're trying to get the public to think that what's going on now in America is the same thing that was going on in the urban centers 4 months ago. No, not even remotely the same. These rural increases are incredibly minimalistic. They're going to go up a little bit. The rural environment's going to hit herd immunity, and they're going to go down without causing any significant issues in this country. But that is not the message that the media wants you to take. The media wants you to be panicked and fearful, just like Facebook fact checkers do. I want to show you another graph tracking U.S. infections in the United States so you can get that 35,000-foot view as to what's really going on, rather than the panic, fear-driven headlines you're seeing on things like the COVID Neuroses Network, otherwise known as CNN. This is a graph of the United States from about the beginning of the outbreak through about 48 hours before I'm creating this video. And you will see here the infections rise dramatically, and then we see them fall dramatically. Now, this is across the entire United States, but it's important to note that the increase and the fall are in the urban centers. Now, this fall that you're seeing is not herd immunity. This fall is lockdowns, okay? So, and there's a whole bunch of reasons that you see this just crash in a lockdown. I've referred to that time and again as an artificial, unsustainable construct. And then here we see about late June when they eased up, and you see the numbers going back up. And this point here is when the urban centers hit herd immunity, and then you see cases falling again all the way through approximately the beginning of October. Right here you see the cases upticking ever so slightly, and that's the virus taking off as we've been discussing. As you can clearly see, compare this to this, yeah, the U.S. is not in any way, shape, or form in bad shape. And all these panic, fear-driven headlines you're seeing, yeah, it just grossly irresponsible and, in my opinion, disgusting behavior on the part of the media. The other headline I love is that hospitalizations are hitting new records in, fill it in, 5 states, 7 states, 11 states, 13 states, whatever, okay? Hospitalizations are increasing. They're hitting record levels. Okay, so here's the thing. If you've got a rural state that had like their record of people being in the hospital on any given day concerning COVID-19 was like 27, if they now have 29 people, that's a record. You see how the media does this. These rural states have had very few cases coming their way until about the end of September, when the numbers started to rise in the rural environment. So now states that had virtually no one hospitalized due to COVID-19, Now they're having a little uptick. But the press wants you to believe it's a disaster, it's a crisis. And it's not. It's just if your numbers were incredibly low to begin with and they tick up, that's a record, right? Yeah, but there's nothing for the nation to be concerned about. When I tell you this and such is going to happen in the future, I usually move out 2-3 weeks into the future and I put it in my calendar to check again. And just yesterday, as I'm sitting here filming this today, just yesterday, the reminder came up to look at Florida because it's been 3 weeks since Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, lifted all personal restrictions concerning the virus in the state of Florida. And of course, everybody, the news media and Fauci, who's owned by Big Pharma, oh, this is terrible. This is dangerous. It's going to be a disaster. And of course, they were all attacking DeSantis. So I told you at the time, there might be a small uptick, and that will be the most. So let's take a look now, 3 weeks later, at what has actually happened in Florida. All right, so looking back historically, of course, you've got to have the red line to get to the blue line, and this is the moment that Florida hit herd immunity. This line here is the exact date that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, lifted all personal virus restrictions in the state of Florida. This line shows that there has been no negative impact whatsoever. I had predicted there might be a slight uptick. There hasn't even been a slight uptick. I think it's important to note that concerning Florida and a lot of other places we've talked about in previous videos, the media was completely wrong. Anthony Fauci was completely wrong. Of course, Fauci, he's cagey. He doesn't come out and say this is going to happen. He says, oh, I'm really concerned. It's almost like I expect a teardrop to come out of his eye anytime. And his concerns never develop into reality. But no matter how many times Fauci's concerns never develop into reality, the media says, Anthony Fauci says, Anthony Fauci's concerned, Anthony Fauci is worried, Anthony Fauci counsels that this is bad. You have to ask yourself, considering that he's been wrong virtually 100% of the time, why does the media keep going back to him and quoting him? I mean, how many times can somebody be wrong before the media says, this guy is non-credible? Yeah. By contrast, though, they do say people are non-credible. So they don't say Fauci's non-credible, no matter how many times he's been proven wrong. He has proven himself wrong time and time again. He remains credible. But the media, especially like Facebook fact checkers, they do determine that people are non-credible. For instance, in my case, if you go back to March when I started making SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19 videos, I have been right 100% of the time. And any fact checker who wanted to go, I mean, I know it's a big investment in time to go back and watch all those videos. I totally get it. But if somebody did, what they would find is every step of the way, I've been right. Fauci's been wrong. The media continues to go back to Fauci. I've been 100% correct. Facebook fact checkers say I am promoting false and misleading information. Now, I don't care what the media says, and I don't care what Facebook fact checkers say. I only care about two things. I care about what I think when I look in the mirror and I know where my integrity is at, and I care that if you're following me and you're watching these presentations, you, over time, can put all the dots together and say, yeah, this totally makes sense. Why is this narrative going on when this over here is reality? If you, following my presentations, following my posts over all these months, have an accurate picture in your head of what's going on, that's all I care about.